All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Friday feature. We're excited to have you with us today as we take a closer look at Lutron Lumaris fixtures. We have Dahlia Hansen here with Lutron, as well as our friends at High Tech Network, and we're ready to give you a better understanding of where Lumaris fixtures fit in today's lighting projects, what makes them different from traditional fixture solutions, and how they can help create a more complete and elevated lighting experience for you and your customers alongside the broader Lutron ecosystem. And of course, not to mention expanding beyond controls and into fixtures allow you to offer a more unified solution and position yourself as a more trusted lighting resource from start to finish. So as always, we have our Q&A here. Go ahead and type in your questions if you have any. We'll make sure to cover them in our Q&A. And we are going to be raffling off some fixtures for a couple of attendees that dropped their questions into the Q&A. So make sure to do that. Dahlia, how you doing today? I know you said it was like 8 o'clock out there because you're in California. So thanks for waking up for
Good
us.
morning. I have my coffee with me. I'm
There you
ready to
go.
go.
Very good. Very good. I
Well, that was a
appreciate it.
wonderful intro, and
Yeah.
I hope we can touch on all of those things. It's a brief presentation, so we'll get started. There's only three topics for today that we're going to cover. We're really going to brush lightly on lighting basics just to give you an idea of how to differentiate product lines that are in the market. Lumaris will cover all the downlights and tape, and then we'll talk about control paths and individual addressability. So that's what we're going to chat about today. So Mark said that we want to use this to get into the lighting space and to understand the difference between this product line and all the other products that are on the market. And in order to do that, we kind of have to understand what lighting in a residential space is designed to do. One of the nicest, easiest ways to remember the three basic layers of light you create in a space is TAG, T-A-G. So one set of lights is for the task, making it so that you can see what you need to see in order to accomplish the thing you want to do. Cook, clean, read, whatever you're doing in an actual space on a surface. Then you have accent lights, which we all kind of really understand pretty easily, right? You've seen artwork with little tiny accent lights over the top, but you can also accent other things like backsplashes and wall coverings. If you have any surfaces that are kind of like textured wallpapers, when you highlight those, that's an accent light. And then the last is the general lighting. And the general lighting is just kind of the layer of light that allows you to see in the space kind of clearly, or at least not feel like you're in a dark space where you don't know where you're going and something bad might happen, you run into something or whatever. Those are generally your downlights. Those are generally your general light. And that's going to give you a nice even tone across the room so it looks like one single area. The tasks are then going to bring a brighter piece of light over a space so that you can complete your task. And the accents are going to give you slight pops to bring your eye in those directions to focus on something in a space. All right, so those are the three layers of light. Why do we need to know this? Well, as we're creating a lighting control system, we're going to be able to raise and lower each of those levels for different activities happening in the room. And if you keep some of those in mind, you'll know that the task lights are probably going to be the brightest in the space. The accent lights are just going to be little pops in the corner, brighter than your general light. And your general light's going to normally be just like a single constant temperature and color. So in this space, to identify these, you've got your task lights, which are right next to the couch and over the coffee table. That's allowing you to either see what you're doing on the coffee table, see the food that's there, snacks, drinks, if you're playing a board game, or reading next to the lamp on the corner of the couch. Your accent lights are kind of accenting the space above the cabinets and the artwork inside. And then your general lights are those downlights in the ceiling that are kind of just giving a nice little even layer of light so that it doesn't feel like any space in the room is a cave or has a dark hole. Now, we can't talk about creating beautiful scenes and natural light inside of a space without talking about actual natural light. And we will get into daylight and how we measure these lights to the sun, but you also have to balance what sunlight is coming in because we're not always in the house while it's dark. So your perfect lighting scenes can be created from the internal sources of the room, but you have to also balance that with the sunlight coming into the windows. So automated shades are available. 21st has them on their website to combine so that you can kind of control the incoming sunlight as well as the scenes happening that you're creating in space. All right, the next point that you guys need to be really familiar with is the black body curve. So this image right here is the macadam ellipse, and that is the visible light spectrum, right? So these are all the colors of light that we can see. They're all given color temperatures because you can measure heat. And the color temperature that you see here is this black bar going across, that little arch, okay? All of the color temperatures on there are related to what happens if you take a stick of iron and you put it into a kiln and heat it up. So that stick of iron will start getting orangey when it's about 1500 Kelvin because it's a color and a temperature. So that temperature is indicated on the bar. And as that bar gets hotter and hotter, it'll go to 2000 degrees, 2500 degrees, 3000 degrees, and it'll start getting whiter. As it goes to 4000 and over into 6000 and 10,000, you can see it's going to start pulling in blues. That's the natural curve of white light to us. What else does that? Well, the sun actually does that as it rises in the morning and sets in the evening. It'll be orangey and more of the 1500 Kelvin glow until we get to midday when it hits about 3000, then 2 o'clock in the afternoon around 4, and then it'll come back down to 2500, 2000, 1500 in the evening. So we're really used to that. In fact, this is exactly what we see with firelight with incandescent bulbs because incandescents are tungsten filaments that are heated up and they glow. So we kind of get used to the idea that when something is dimmer, it's going to be warmer, like that 2700 Kelvin on the left. And as it gets brighter, it'll turn into a crystal glow white, like the 4000 and 5000 Kelvin on the right. So that is called warm dim. And if you look at any of the fixtures that are out there or bulbs that you buy on the shelves, you'll see that they all have color temperatures on them. And this is kind of going to help give you a reference of what each one is. 2700 is going to be your really warm. 3000 is going to be your medium warm. There's a lot of 4000 Kelvin kind of jumps up to there and gives you a cooler, brighter white. But they don't change as they dim. They stay in that range. So we call that static dimming. So when you buy those lights and you turn them to full bright, they're going to stay at 2700 Kelvin, which is probably going to feel a little too warm when it's fully bright, and then drop down and be 2700 Kelvin when they're dim, which is going to feel really good. On the other side of the spectrum, your 4000 and 3500, and they're really bright, they're going to feel great because they're bright and they're 4000 Kelvin. But as you dim down, they're not going to warm up. They're going to stay cool, and it's going to create kind of a gray area, a feeling of gray. So in this space, you can see how we took one scene from a kitchen and gave it all the different color white light spectrum to prevent it from feeling dull in the evening and to prevent it from feeling really orangey and overbearing in the middle of the day. And that's what your warm dimming capabilities give you. Now, I will tell you, I've done a lot of these demos before, and it is surprising, but there are a few folks who actually prefer static dim. So that is an additional feature because we have tunable white light as well. So we have warm dim plus tunable white. And if your customer says, oh, I really like white light, the orangey bothers me, I don't like how it feels on my eyes, like it's just not what I want it to be. I really like these cool colors and I like it when it dims down to there. You can stay in that range and give both of those options as a flexible solution. Okay, so now we have talked about why lighting is important and understanding the different types of light in a space. We've talked about the color temperatures of white light. Now let's talk about quality white light. So there's something called the color rendering index, and this is simply a measurement tool. And we wanted to measure it towards the most perfect light source which is the sun. So we give the sun a 100 score. It's a perfect score for CRI. And CRI means how well that light renders the color that you're looking at. So we measure how well an LED light renders the color to match what the sunlight renders the color. And if you're at a score of 90% plus, just like in school, you got an A. That's a great quality product. So all of the Lutron lights have a 90 plus CRI. In fact, in California, we're actually required to sell only lights with 90 plus CRI. So it does help in making Lutron sales a little more easy. But this quality changes the way that we see the item. Because when you look at something that's really red, if the light is only 90% of what that red is, it's not the same red as you see outside that you're used to in standard daylight or when your windows are open at a kitchen window or in your living room. If it's at a 60, you're only getting 60% of the visuals that you actually have in that space. And as we start working really closely with homeowners who are usually doing remodels and renovations and building homes that they are pouring their hearts into, they're spending a lot of time picking countertops, cabinetry, flooring, the color of the couches that they're putting in, the furniture that's going in their bedroom. All of that is being selected and spent time and money over. And the poorer quality light you have, the poorer it'll actually look in your space. So it doesn't actually look as good as it did when you saw it in the showroom, and it doesn't feel the same way, and you don't get all of the money that you put into it. So as we've gone through, and California is one of the leaders on changing the way that we go to market and moving us away from incandescent bulbs to LEDs. I've heard all across the country that everyone's been like stockpiling their regular bulbs because they like the way they perform. They like the way that they look because that's a very natural high CRI in an incandescent bulb. And so now we've spent this entire time living with LED technologies and kind of reducing the light quality that comes from that and kind of accepting it. And now what we have with Lutron is the ability to recreate that feeling we got from those incandescent bulbs in an LED format that's controllable by all of the control systems we want: voice, phone, remote access, and other products. So as you can see here, this is an image to kind of help understand what I'm talking about. But if you have food on a plate that has those reds and those oranges, and you're only getting 60% of the color, it's going to look like the food on the plate on the right. And you're probably looking at going, oh my gosh, it looks so sad. It's just not inviting or appetizing. Same way when you go in like hospital lighting where it's really, really white and it's not really quality white light and it kind of makes your skin gray and your lips get a little bit purple. That quality of light is going to render on skin tones as well. So it does actually make you look healthier and feel better in your space. So now that you understand why we think that this is important, let's start with what we have at Lutron. So first off, we've been selling Radio Raw for literally 30 years. Raw 3 has been out for about 8 now. And this is a standardized style of a floor plan, right? Where we take 2 Raw 3 hybrid keypads and dimmers and we put them in a space. And then those are controlling a load that's inside of the kitchen, and you have a load that's over the dining room, and you have a load that's over the living room. And then we can add another dimmer to be able to control the space in the kitchen. So now we've got a keypad control with dimming, and we have another dimmer inside the space, and we're dimming this entire thing, creating scenes. We can do our 3 ways with picos, and we can also add picos next to the couch or in the living room for remote control of the area. Wall box adapter faceplates, a Raw 3 proc, you add that to this. You're looking at about $1,850 for this system. And this is a very traditional wired control points are in the wall type system. Now let's talk about retrofit and recessed lighting of today, because that was controlling other people's recessed lightings. So now let's talk about what we see. This is the plethora of recessed lighting options that you have out there, okay? All kinds of CCT, selectable, static. There's a few warm dim options that are available. All of them require an external driver. Okay, so you're gonna have to find a driver that is compatible with those lights. I don't know if any of you have noticed, but they really batch these up. So they will make hundreds of thousands of them. And in the middle of the run, they will just change a component and it can be a completely different product when it comes to market. But their integration with a driver is not a minimum required spec other than works. They'll just say, yes, can be hooked up to a driver. Yes, is dimmable. But how it dims, how well it dims, and how it's going to integrate is not of their concern. Then they have the selectable or static CCTs. So you'll either not be able to dim it at all for the least expensive products or static CCT for our better quality ones that are available today. And those, when you can dim them, will generally only dim, and this is really good, 5 to 10%. They will dim down to 10 or 5%. The less expensive ones will dim down to 30%. And they'll just be a small wafer, right? It's going to be 1 or 2 LEDs just on a tiny little disc put inside. So it's not a high quality construction. Those are then all going to wire to a control point, right? They're going to go into the ceiling, hook up on a set of hot wires, and then come down to a control point that's usually a switch, which then you would replace with a dimmer. And lastly, they're going to stay in those wired zones, right? Whatever that reflected ceiling plan says is connected to that switch. Those 4, 6, or 8 lights are connected, and that's how they stay. That's very traditional. So what we're doing with Lumaris is we're flipping the script, okay? Because we have had to be the dimmer on all of the LEDs that show up in the ceilings, we have learned that controlling them, no matter how good they say they are, never meets the expectations of the installer, the homeowner, or us. And at the end of the day, we're the ones always on the hook where they're like, well, your dimmer's in the box, so we're calling you. What did you do? So we made lights, all right? And we didn't make just regular lights. We created a Lumaris product line to eliminate all the problems we just talked about, right? That external driver, nah. If Lutron's going to deliver a light, then the driver can be inside of the light because we know the performance specs of the LED chipset that we're working with. We know the performance specs of our controls and what we want to see. So we can just build the driver right into the unit itself. We also have a lot of experience with our Catcher product line in understanding how to do a beautiful, smooth dimming curve and warm dimming properties. So we've put the 1800 Kelvin to 4000 Kelvin range into everything in our Lumaris portfolio, downlights and tape. This means you don't have to worry about picking the correct color temperature when you start, and you're able to change it whenever you need to. Now, we talked about how color temperature makes food look different and your skin tones look different. But can you imagine how color temperature would change a room if it was very brown and orange? Those warm color temps really get exaggerated when the room is warm. And when the room is cool, the cooler temperatures get exaggerated. So it's really difficult to know what's going to be the exact correct color temperature for a space, especially when customers can change their design aesthetics throughout the years. So this is that get out of jail free card. You don't have to worry about picking. Now, when it comes down to dimming, we do that better than anyone, and we've taken the technology we've used in our Catcher product line and brought that into Lumaris as well to bring us down to not 1, but 0.1% dimming. That is going to bring us down to a true visualized 1%. And the reason why this is important is our 5 to 10% static dimming is really only dimming down to about 20 to 30% when your eyeball perceives it. All right. So what I'm trying to say is your pupil actually dilates when it gets darker. It's a wonderful mechanism that our bodies do to allow us to see better at night, but then not allow all of the brightness of the light in the middle of the day in. So we change and shift as it gets darker. So when it gets darker in a room, our eyeballs are actually fighting the ability to get down to a smaller and smaller and smaller dim. So that 10%, our pupils will open up and see 30. And at 5%, we'll open up and see about 20. And at 0.1%, we'll finally get to the ability to just open up and see 1% dim. This allows us to use that tag method a lot more dramatically. So we can now place accent lights at 0.1% instead of turning them off because 30% is way too bright. We're not trying to take away from the task. At 30%, you're taking away from the task, and you basically are not able to have any other light styles because everything's going to come down to that point and then go off. So this really allows you to do the dream and bring back those beautiful dynamic scenes that we've seen in incandescent lamps and bulbs from decades ago. You're also going to get Lutron quality. All right, so another thing that we've really brought to the table with downlights is the fact that we've got to keep that consistency across light to light. Any of you have been to a airport or a large restaurant and you look at the downlights, you'll see that some of them are greenish, some of them are pinkish, some of them are bluish. Well, that's the light kind of bending and stretching across and leaving its uniform mixing. Lutron's going to guarantee that for our 50,000 hours. Then you're going to have wireless control with keypads and scenes, including picos, and it's all built in, so it's guaranteed to work. You don't have to add additional dimmers. We put the dimming inside the unit as well. It's like an all-in-one Swiss Army knife. And then the last part, which is crazy, is it's all wireless zoning now. So the wires come in to power it up straight hot, but we have wireless communication inside of each of the downlights, allowing you to pick and choose which one you want to turn on when and rezone on the fly. These things actually become really important to higher end builders, not necessarily your just standard stick constructions, but in higher end buildings, if you want to be able to get in and start wiring faster, not worrying about final sign-offs on reflected ceiling plans and selection of the color temperature for those downlights allows you to put these in ready to go as soon as they're ready. So specs for the downlight, we're looking at separate models for Raw 3 and Homeworks. So for you guys, you're doing the Raw 3 product line. If you run into a Homeworks job, they do not mix and match. They are $200 a piece, USD. They have an 800 lumen output and they take up 8.5 watts each. An 8.5 watt load allows you to throw 40 downlights max on a 15 amp breaker. So we talked about how we can individually control each one. Well, you can now run an entire section of the house, an open floor plan on one run back down to the breaker, as long as you don't go over 40 lights. We have photometric data to help you with your ceiling light and figure out your beam spread. These are going to be a 1/2 inch regress from the lens. So the ceiling plane is going to be here and the lens itself is going to regress into the ceiling a 1/2 inch. It is a diffuser on it, so it does look beautiful. You do not see any diodes. These are going to be fixed. We're not going to be able to change the angle, so they're just going to get fixed right into the ceiling, cut them in, pop them up there. They are round right now. We do not have a square trim today, and they're available in black or white. Your aperture is going to be a 3 inch on your 4 inch hole, and your aperture is going to be a 4 inch on those 5 and 6 inch downlights. So when can I use these? Well, you can use them in a new construction or retrofit. So this one's going to be a little confusing. So I need you to remember the remodeler is for new construction or remodels where you get down the stick and you're able to actually run wires in there. Now, if you can run wires really well, you've got access to electrical above a ceiling, you can also put these in a complete retrofit situation. It's just the retrofit on the right are designed to go in existing cans. They have those little metal arms on there, so you replace the can you have, 5 or 6 inch. There's even a 4 inch, and it has a little dongle on there, so you can screw it into an Edison base or plug it into a GU64 if you happen to be doing a job in California. Quickly covering the tape, which you guys have seen before. Tape ran through the same problem. You would have static white tape. You would have DIY solutions that you could buy on Amazon, and then you'd have the best of the best, which is DMX color tuning, which all takes a lot of programming. The retail solution, if you lose that credit card remote, you have to buy the whole thing over again. It doesn't integrate with anything. And the static white stuff has the same problems we talked about with the downlights, where you have to find a driver. You have to make sure it's compatible. You have to figure out if the tape will dim down to any decent percentage. And then you still have to add a dimmer to it once you're finished. So with Lutron, what we did is we brought everything together to allow you to have a RA3 system talking to that control driver. And that's the same idea as these downlights. The controller, the driver, the wireless communication, and the dimmer are all in that one unit. So you no longer have to figure out how to make them all work together. We have our tunable white light tape on the left-hand side, and then tunable white plus RGB, super popular for those kitchens. I will tell you, most people don't use color after the first few times, but it's a really exciting big wow factor, and these both come in kits. All right, so just recap on how you do tape. You can also buy everything a la carte, does not have to be in a box. We have up to 30 meter spools of that tape. You just measure how much you need, count the controllers and zones, add in your power supplies depending on how many controllers you're running and how many feet of tape, and then make sure you use our connectors and interconnects, because you have to use the jacket and wire size to make a nice snug fit in those alligator teeth. Recap and summary on this: we are looking at a complete Lumaris portfolio today that includes recessed downlights for retrofit and new construction, tunable white light tape that matches perfectly with that color, temperature, and range, and then tunable white tape plus RGB that also matches in this range, 1800 to 4000 Kelvin. And you're able to select any of those, so you can warm dim on the dimming. So you have 1800 at the lowest, 0.01%, and 4000 at the highest, full bright. It is tunable white, so you can select any color temperature in that range. It doesn't even have to be 2700. It can be 2750. So it's completely smooth. You can see on the app on the side, it's a slider. You literally slide the brightness on the left-hand side and the color temperature on the right. It's going to go down to 0.1%. Flicker free, no on off, no popping, nothing, just really smooth dimming curve performance that you expect from Lutron. All of these lights are a 90 plus CRI, so they're going to render the colors, the surfaces, the materials in the house really well. And they're all CCX, so they count towards that 200 device limit on a raw processor, and they're all individually addressable. So we talked about this. You're like, oh my gosh, individual addressability, this is amazing. It'll change the world. So what are we really going to see, right? So right now, here's what you could look at. The breaker is down in a cabinet somewhere. And then you have the wires going up to all the lights in the kitchen, over to the dining room, back to the kitchen, down into the living room, one run. And each of those is individually addressable, so you can see how we've changed each lighting load. I can control 2 over the counter in the island. I can control an L shape right over the kitchen. I can control just the 2 lights over the couches or just the light over the TV. Really flexible. And then we can add Pico controls anywhere and regular keypads. But in all likelihood, not everything is going to be individually addressable, and not everything is going to be run on a single run. So you will have a combination of both local control points and home runs with this. So if we look back at our RA3 system that's traditional that we've seen before, we have a system that's 1850. Our Lumaris system is going to be a step up from that. That's going to be our best solution. And so if we look at what that's going to appear to you guys, this is the concept there. 14 Lumaris downlights going into this space, completely reprogrammable for your zones. 4 Pico remotes, if you would like to add those as controls, they can put in the wall box with adapters and faceplates in our RA3 proc. And we're looking at a 3650 solution to be the highest quality white light, highest performance, best dimming, and integration with other systems. So here they are side by side. We're able to run all of those lights back to a single breaker, reduces copper, reduces the installation time for the electrical contractor, reduces the time for the builder to bring it to the keys to the homeowner, and gives you much more flexibility to change throughout the course of the homeowner living in that space. So are you guys ready to offer this? This is your new product lineup. This is everything that 21st has for you. We've got our dimmers, we've got our keypads, we have 0 to 10 volt relay control, lamp dimmers, motion sensors, outdoor plugs, and our individually addressable downlights and tape light. That concludes the presentation portion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dahlia. We had some good questions here that Jason answered, so I appreciate it. Just another tidbit. So to purchase the fixtures and tape, you just need to be a pro dealer. Is that right?
Well, you should.
Right. Should be. Yes.
You should. You can technically buy the downlights, put them in the ceiling, and stick them on a switch. They will turn on and off at full bright 3000 Kelvin, but you can't dim a dimmer, so you can't put another dimmer onto that load.
Right, right. So if you are not already set up as a pro and you want to get certified as a pro, we have Raw 3 trainings, get in touch with your 21st Century rep and we can get you set up for that. Really appreciate Dahlia for joining us today. We're going to have more trainings, more to come with Lumaris. We're going to have shades training as well. Next month, we're going to have a shade essentials. Well, it's the triathlon shade select training next month as well. So make sure you check that out. And we got Garrett and Ann here who are going to get some free fixtures. So really appreciate the questions and appreciate everybody's time today. Thanks, Dahlia, and have a wonderful weekend, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.